This is a 102.7 FM Toowoomba original podcast.
Welcome everybody to my podcast, Big Little Small Talk. I'm Megan O'Hara-Sullivan and I love to talk, but I also love to listen. If you're new here, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoy the episode. Hello, I'm Megan O'Hara-Sullivan. You're on Big Little Small Talk, and today we are talking to Tabitha Wordsworth. Now, Tabitha got in touch with me and said that she would like to be interviewed for Big Little Small Talk. So listeners, you are going to get to know Tabitha as I get to know Tabitha. Tabitha, you have not always used the surname Wordsworth. Why do you use that name now?
Well, I'm doing a lot of writing and I am an Irish girl at heart. And anyway, it's just sort of like encompassing my new vibration. That name you have me on Facebook, Tabitha Lloyd Tanbuell, which everyone can find me as, is my old name. I'm phasing that one out, bringing in the new name, Tabitha Wordsworth. Eventually I'll change it all formally and legally, but it's just sort of like encompassing everything that I've changed my whole world to be, which is more like a writer sort of a person with lots of good words.
Yeah. So are you an admirer of Wordsworth's writing?
Well, yes, I love reading when I get a chance, but I do more writing than reading myself. And I've written a few books, and it seems like a fitting name for me at this point.
I want to talk about your books later on, but Tabitha, did you grow up in Toowoomba? Are you a Toowoomba person or?
No, I've only been here since 2009.
New, relatively new, as people would say, not a local yet. So tell me the story of where did you grow up?
Oh, I grew up in Canberra and Melbourne. I'm really a Melbourne girl by heart. I think about Toowoomba as being a lovely place, and the people are very lovely, but they're very hard to get to know, to get to build a friendship with. It's not like in Melbourne, you meet someone at the shop and they're your best friend from that point on. You can't get rid of them. Not the same in Toowoomba. And Toowoomba has that big city vibe, but I do love the warmth of the community. And everywhere I go, I feel welcome. It doesn't matter what group I go to. I go around to different churches and different activities. I go to talking groups and music groups, and everywhere I feel welcome. But making the friends who want to do things with you all the time, it's really hard.
Oh, isn't that interesting? Yeah, I thought when you were saying that was a contradiction. Like you say that people are very, very warm, but it's the actual sort of taking that next step, is it? Trying to find a friendship group. Yeah.
Well, not like when you were young. I mean, when we're older, it's so much harder to make friends, isn't it? But I just remember, in my childhood and growing up in Canberra and Melbourne, it seemed like, Canberra was quite a cliquey place. It wasn't the easiest place to make a friend, but Melbourne was just unbelievably easy. So that's kind of like my background experience. I guess I still expect that from the world, but I do accept that Toowoomba's a different region and things are different here.
So tell me, what were Mum and Dad doing in Canberra? What sort of work did they do? They belong to the public service like the rest of Canberrans?
Yes, my dad was a public servant. Yes, that's right. And he was in the government down there and also in Melbourne in the SES. And my mum, she was a homebody, but she was a fine artist. She eventually got to do fine arts and did a lot of painting, older years and everything. And she's got a huge collection that she managed to get done. But she spent a while there in the public service as well. She did about 10 years in the public service.
You say that your father was in government. I have to ask, was he an elected official or was he in the, I don't want to say bureaucracy.
He was in the Victorian state government and he was in the SES. I'm not really sure what his roles were, but he was in there for ages. And he finally retired and then went into small business himself, and he didn't really go back to the public service and the SES work.
What was your childhood like? Do you have any brothers and sisters?
Oh, yes. I have two twin brothers and a younger sister, but my younger sister passed away. Yes, and my older brothers both have children now. They used to get teased in school, and there was someone in the high school who used to write comic books about them. They were so funny. Those comic books were hilarious. I'll never forget those. Because my brothers were twins. They were identical twins, but you could tell them apart. I could tell them apart quite easily. But they're meant to be identical twins.
And what sort of things were they teased for?
Oh, just being tall, lanky boys.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
The comic books were quite hilarious, making up stories about what they used to get into, but it wasn't true, of course.
So was it someone used to draw drawings of your brothers and put out a little production of, or a comic book? Was it more than one, or?
Oh, yes, they had a series going. I mean, my brothers were, they accepted it and they got given the copies. I don't think he Xeroxed them or anything. It was just like maybe about once a month or something. He produced the two Lloyd comics about my brothers. And
So they were called the two Lloyd comics, were they?
yeah, the two Lloyds.
And did your brothers, did they like that, or did they feel like they were kind of being made fun of a bit?
I think it's interesting that you ask that because I never thought that was a problem for them. I think they took it on their stride, took it on the chin and everything, and it just made them feel famous themselves or something, it was a good joke.
Yeah, right. And what are your sort of memories of childhood? Did you have a happy childhood, or any, not that I'm trauma digging, but what are your sort of memories when you think back about those Canberra days?
I had a fairly happy childhood. I grew up in Canberra with my brothers and sisters around, but we also moved around. We lived in Sydney and Katoomba, and we travelled around a bit between those places. We had a few houses in Canberra, and I went to primary school. I did really well in primary school. I ended up being a school captain in my year 6, and I was the lead role in The Wizard of Oz in the school. But then I moved to a different high school and got in with a whole bunch of naughty kids, I don't know, in a short time. As you do, you have your teenage years, and I had my teenage years with those kids. So it was a whole different situation there in high school for me. But I had a mixed experience. I don't know if it's a common experience or with others, but it was actually quite a traumatizing experience in my high school. And I couldn't communicate with my mother that well, and she was my main carer, our main carer. So mum and dad had got divorced, and they both remarried, and we were living with mum with the new husband, and he was a scientist in ANU. And he was a very, very bright man, and he used to help us with our maths homework, which is great. But yeah, no, I had a few traumas in my high school years, and unfortunately, my mother wasn't very supportive. Gosh, got into so many different things, tried so many different things, tried the school councils and everything. Oh, in the later end of the high school years. But in between that, I was loving dancing contests. I used to go to all the dancing contests. I used to do blue light discos with all the kids from school. But I also got into flash dancing. And I entered in the flash dance contest, and I became a finalist in the flash dance competition. And at the finals, I don't really want to spoil it for myself, but at the finals, I didn't win. But I did walk away with a copy of the Flashdance album, the movie soundtrack, and I was so happy about that. And my friends were like, whoa, whoa, And I used to do athletics, and I was very good in athletics. I got to the finals in the 200-meter sprint and long jump and discus. And
So can we just go back, when you said about you got in with the wrong crowd, listeners will probably have heard me say this before. I always say that my kids were the wrong crowd. What was it that you were searching for, or what drew you to these kids, do you think?
Well, just being plonked into that high school with no choice, really. So I lost contact with all my besties from my junior school, which is pretty sad because there was no encouragement to keep in touch with them. I was a very seen and not heard compliant child, so I wouldn't question what my parents decided and everything. So I never asked for anything. Wasn't very assertive, And so I just got in with the kids that were there available, and no, well, the things that we were getting into weren't just naughty things that kids do, but we were so bad. We were really naughty. We would get plastered on cask wine that would, steal out of our parents' house and everything, and no education, no proper education about responsible drinking and just being sick from drinking. And
were you ever in sort of dangerous situations, do you think? Do you look back at that time and think, oh, like I really dodged a bullet there?
Oh, yes, definitely. Because, today I'm not really in touch with too many of those people. We've all lost contact as well. So that was a group of people. We went through these amazing experiences together, as you do. We've all lost contact now. And I regret that because there were some really great friends with them, and we were all very, very creative together. And I wish that we'd started a comedy company or something and made home movies. Oh, something. We did make a movie together. We made a movie as part of our media course in school, And it was pretty good. And there were some very talented photographers and everything in that group. It was quite a great group that I liked. We all lost contact with each other. But I wish that we'd stayed together because those friendships were quite good. We all cared about each other. It seemed like we sort of cared about each other. But then, oh gosh, I had a nervous breakdown in my year 10. So that tells you kind of like what happened to me. But anyway, in my year 10, I had a nervous breakdown and people were very shielding. They didn't want anybody to go anywhere near me. It would hurt me or something. And so I kind of just lost so much social life and connection in my year 10 at school. Anyway, I guess you asked me, was I in a dangerous situation? Yes, I think I was, because there was no one giving you mentoring about making the friendships and what's respectful behaviour. And I really have this opinion now, as you do when you get to this age, you have an opinion about everything. But I've got the opinion that children should be guided and given coaching about their social world, what they want from their life, what kind of social world they want. Because you don't want to get to my age, I'm 55, and be in my situation and feel like, oh, dang, I just really lucked out. Yeah, I wish my situation was better. I wish I had a group of friends I could go on holidays with, and I don't have that. I feel like that was a critical time. If I'd got those skills laid down then, I could have been in a better situation now. But I can't complain. I've been all over the place, and I've lived in Melbourne, and I've lived in Noosa, and I've lived in Townsville. So I've got to see a lot of Australia, and I'm very happy about that. But yeah, it's just that there's no connections, and I'm still longing for that. I should have joined Rotary or something, because I love being involved and contributing to the community and everything.
I'm sure if there's lots of Rotary groups, there's lots of people out there who probably would like Tabitha to join them, particularly if they want to be on the committee. My godfather, you'll be hounded down, Tabitha, don't worry. Tabitha, if you don't mind me asking, can I ask what happened to your sister?
Oh my goodness, my sister had a tragic accident walking across the road in Melbourne. She just had a baby, and the baby was 3 months old. She was walking across the road, and apparently she's pushed the baby and the pram out of the way, and she got hit by a car walking across the road, and she had fatal injuries. But it took her 17 years before she passed away, and she was in a nursing home.
Oh my goodness.
It was so,
and what happened to the little baby?
Tragic. The baby got put onto the father and raised by the father. So that was it was just such a tragedy. It just ruined my family life. I think everybody took it, in their own little way, a bit differently. And of course, I was really crushed by that happening. And unfortunately, I was quite crushed by my family's reaction. They wouldn't let me do very much for my sister. And I was up in Townsville. I was considering changing my degree. I just started a degree, and I was considering changing my degree to medical science. I was doing biological science and marine biology and all that, conservation environment. And I was really deeply considering. I went around and checked it out, thinking about, will I change to medical science to be more useful to my sister? Because I had a lot of hope that she would recover, and all the brain rehabilitation programs that there are, that she could do some of those, walk and talk again one day. And I was really fired up. I really wanted to help her and give her that try at rehabilitation, but my mother and father were in control, and they wouldn't let me. So I had that barrier there. I couldn't even, get to help her in any way. I mean, I wasn't physically going to help her myself. I was just going to try and organise the team to help her, and whether she'd be taken overseas or something. But they got a few specialists. There was a Dr. Freeman, who's like a brain injury specialist, and he was hanging around for a while trying to help her, but they decided that they just wouldn't. And so she only got basic treatment and care and maintenance, and she never walked or talked again. So it was just sad to see her.
Incredibly tragic. And did the family stay close to the baby?
Yes. I think my mother had a little bit of contact with the father. Kalen is the boy's name. Was raised by the father, and my mother kept in contact with him, but he didn't really keep in touch with anyone. So Kalen, Marina's baby, was raised by the father, and he wasn't really part of family life at all. And I never saw him. I think I saw him once. So
how quickly life turns around. I'll just remind the listeners, you're on 102.7 FM. You've tuned into Big Little Small Talk, and we're talking to Tabitha Wordsworth. Tabitha, you said that you were going to change your degree. So you went to study biology. You were studying biology?
Yes.
And you did an honours, you're an honours graduate as well?
Yes, I
Tell me
did
about
honours.
that.
Well, it wasn't enough. I mean, I loved marine biology. It was so interesting up at Townsville. And they made the course so interesting, and I loved every minute of it. No, it was a very full-on course. It was like a job, 30 hours a week on contact and
Wow.
15 hours a week in the labs, cutting things and drawing pictures and out in the field. And so it was so interesting. The lectures were really interesting, and they overteach. They overteach. There's so many little formulas that I'll never need, and little stories about, biological field trips and everything that these lecturers went on. So it was absolutely fascinating, and I did love it. I did pretty well. I got a couple of distinctions in the whole degree, but it was mainly credits. So I was really proud with my performance there, but sad that I didn't get into a full-time job. And I had this job at the end. I think I got a graduate program. I applied for the graduate program with Australian Fisheries Management Authority in Canberra, and they flew me down for an interview and everything, but then they didn't take me, so that was sad. But I was just umming and ahhing what to do, and I had some personal crisis that I had to go through as well during that time, which was sad. But anyway, I got involved with Seagrass Watch, and I volunteered with the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority Aquarium in Townsville called Reef HQ. I did that for an entire year, which was marvellous. I mean, doing that degree, it took my mind off of what had happened to my sister, and I really wasn't involved in it anymore, in her life anymore. And it was a bit of a loss. It was quite a loss, but I had other things keeping me busy, I suppose. So I'm thankful for that. But anyway, I did that, and I was kind of getting quite ambitious and everything, and I think I was shopping around for a good honours project, because you can choose, in the end, which one you enrol in. And I finally chose this project, Southern Cross University, on a marine park in New South Wales, on Solitary Islands Marine Park. And so that was cool, because Solitary Islands is a third of the size of the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park, which most of my studies in the degree focused on the management protocols in Great Barrier Reef Marine Park. So the Solitary Islands Marine Park project was really good. It was like a good, sample project if I wanted to keep on working in marine parks and everything. And it was a great team of people. I worked with the university, Southern Cross University, and some people from the Marine Science Centre and the Marine Parks Authority in New South Wales. So I had a great group, a great opportunity there. And sadly, I think it was a personal crisis and a combination of factors, and I had a nervous breakdown during my honours. But they were so kind to me, and they just let me continue writing up my thesis. So I did get to submit the thesis in the end, and they were very patient and understanding, and they really loved my project as well. And they even gave me a grade, so that was cool. But that was kind of like my sort of look at everything. I think I just pushed myself. I was so ambitious. I just wanted to get a good job like my father, and work in something really juicy, in the government or in the public service. I got one temporary contract after doing all of that in Canberra at the Department of Environment and Heritage, and I got to work in this international species conservation management group, and it was really cool. And being part of the secretariat, working out a big committee, looking at a huge conservation project in the Indo-Pacific and lots of different countries, and there were so many projects, and it was really interesting meeting the people down in Canberra, but you're also contacting those people in the Indo-Pacific. And I could have remained connected and maybe even gone over there to work, but it hasn't. My life didn't pan out like that.
Sometimes things are a bit of a curveball. Well, tell me this, and you may not know the answer to it. With the algal bloom down there off South Australia, part of it is the warming of the oceans, and part of it is to do with the amount of runoff, isn't it, from the cropping and things. Why can't the runoff be regulated? I ask everyone I know who is a marine biologist this question. Do you know the answer?
Well, regulated, that's a good point. I mean, they have the liability to the chemicals that they use on their farms and everything. So that's where the regulation is.
Well, isn't it the same with the Great Barrier Reef, that the bleaching is being caused predominantly from the runoff? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. But it's global warming too.
Oh, for sure, yes. And I know you have a very keen interest in the environment. So tell me exactly what an environmental science conservationist philanthropist is.
Oh, cool.
And was that you, or were you working for that person?
Well, that was me. I did start an environmental consultancy after finishing my honours. I was living down in the Central Coast, and my grandfather, my beautiful grandfather, God rest his soul, was providing me a home to rent. He was renting me a flat there, and I was living there, and I was trying to start a consultancy on my own, but I had no experience and everything, with starting these things. But I had masses of ideas for work, and putting in my ideas pretty much for free to the councils, these amazing projects to help with conservation and reduce toxic emissions, everything else, and improve conservation in the region. But that never got me any contract work, so I kind of just left that. And that's what I meant by being a philanthropist, was that I was doing this stuff, but it was really on a volunteer basis. The main job that I did get with that consultancy was a science teaching role at New South Wales TAFE, and I loved that. I really loved that, but it was such a challenge. I mean, they threw me in the deep end, and I admit I'm used to being thrown in the deep end, but it was quite hard to just produce a course, curriculum, but it did work effectively, and they never ended up giving me a full-time job there. So I moved on from that. No, I've completely moved on from all of this that I did my training in, and I've been working in other fields now for years. I haven't even returned to environmental science for years. The only thing I do every now and then is make a few jokes or comments about how we should create a conscription of all the biologists in Australia and get them to work on species conservation of other mammals, because we've got a really bad reputation, a really bad record and reputation for making our native animals go extinct. And if we get all the biologists, make them work for at least 1 year on one of the species,
I think that might be the answer.
That'd be good use of the biologists.
You said that you've moved away from your degree and what you were trained in. Now, in 2014, you wrote a book about early intervention for autism. Tell me about that and what the motivating factor for that was.
Well, oh my goodness, I was so amazed. My daughter had an autism condition. Now, I only found out a couple of years ago, now that I'm on the spectrum myself, but I didn't know this for sure until a couple of years ago. But my daughter, who I had with my ex-husband, and I was living with her after separating from him up in Mount Lofty, well, she needed to have early intervention for her autism. And I didn't know that early intervention was a thing until I did a bit of research. I discovered on the Department of Health website that if you provide this 20 hours per week of structured activity for 2 years to a child on the spectrum, they can show lots of improvement in all of their problems with their autism, all of the debilitating things about autism, which I thought, great, let's do it. So I got a few ideas off of the speech pathologist and the pediatrician, occupational therapists that were seeing with my daughter, and designed pretty much a home schedule, including going out to play groups and reading books and different activities, so that we had the 20 hours per week of structured activity for her. And I wrote the book because I wanted to help other families and parents who were going through this, because I was looking at the whole picture and considering whether Lillian would need to have an ABA intervention. An ABA costs a fortune and people have to come to your home. And
what does it mean, ABA?
Applied Behaviour Analysis Program, but it's an intervention. So people have to get trained in the specific need areas for the intervention. So particular behaviours that you want to change or you help your child with, in particular, they get trained on how to help with those. And it costs masses of money. I mean, starting from $45,000 for a year, and I just didn't have any access to that kind of money. I looked at also AEIOU, and I was really impressed with AEIOU. Their program for intervention is excellent, and I really was considering putting Lillian into AIOU. Anyway, that was also just out of reach. We would have been just scraping it, and it was just not financially viable. I got a lot of ideas and information from them about what to provide for Lillian, and we pretty much did a home early intervention from home. But we did get professionals as well. We had occupational therapy appointments, we had play groups, we had speech pathology appointments, pediatrician appointments. So it was a very professional program in the end, and it was really good. I thought it was great. But the progress that she made was worth it. It was so worth it. And I didn't have to work because I had the payment from Centrelink, parenting payment, and it was heaps of money. There was heaps of money just from that. I really didn't need the extra funds that we had from the Helping Children with Autism package, which was provided by the Julia Gillard government, because there was a huge cohort of children with autism in that year. So they had to create a funding. They created a funding pool, and we got access to that funding pool, and we had a $12,000 grant for Lillian until she was 6. And I think I only ended up using about $2,000 on toys and things. But it was a really generous package, and they were probably scared about how many children were coming up with autism in the
So Tabitha, what you said there was a whole lot of people with autism that year. What do you put that down to? Is that tracking, or is that a recognised statistic, or do you mean just that year there was a lot of people with autism?
Well, I know for myself that autism used to be quite a rare thing. You never really heard too many children having autism. For myself, I never really noticed that. But I think that was why they had the Helping Children with Autism package, the funding grant, which was created by the government at the time, because there was a huge increase in the number of children who were coming up with these symptoms.
I wondered whether it might have been part of that Gonski education reform stuff that the Gillard government was bringing in at the time, and perhaps early intervention was one of the things that they recognised was worth spending some money on.
Yes, but now we know. It is a genetic thing. I'm autistic, and Lillian's father, who knows? I think he might be on the spectrum too. There's something definitely in his communication patterns which is a little bit out there. She probably had a high, genetic predisposition to an autism.
I'll just remind the listeners, you're with Megan O'Hara-Sullivan, that's me. We're on Big Little Small Talk, and we're talking to Tabitha Wordsworth, who is a local here in Toowoomba, who's taking us through the steps of where she's been and how she's got to where she is today. Now, also in 2014, you started Healing Worlds. Tell me about that.
Oh, well, Healing Worlds was, the early intervention from autism, and writing the book about Lillian's program, because it was so successful, was the basis of Healing Worlds. But then also, since I was an environmental scientist for a while, I had this, which I started designing, called Envira. And Envira is like a fictional character who just wants to save the world, and she's got all these ideas about climate change. And that's a whole Facebook page which I started. So that was like an arm. And I thought, I can pull in my biology degree into Healing Worlds and incorporate all of this, and this can be the whole package, because one of my things is, save the world since I was a child. So Healing Worlds was the early intervention book about Lillian, and I tried to offer a service to the community, offering guidance about how parents could run their own early intervention as well. I applied to Autism Queensland to get work with them, and they were quite interested in me for a while, but they never ended up giving me a job, sadly. But anyway, so I sort of went out on a little bit of an independent ledge there, and saying, early intervention isn't something you need too many experts for. You're the expert on your child, and you can do it yourself. And just try and encourage people to be a bit more confident about receiving a diagnosis like that, instead of being too intimidated and worried and leaving it to the experts and thinking your child will never make it and all the rest of it.
Yeah. I was under the impression that Healing Worlds was a retail, because you also, in 2014, seems like it was a pretty big year for you that year, you started making Healing Stone jewellery. Tell me about that.
Oh, yes. Well, I had the friend who was importing the stones from China, and I bought a bunch from him. But in 2014, Lillian had gone. She was taken by the family court. I was going through family court, and I was in a lot of trauma. And making the jewellery was like an inspired decision. I got moved out of my house and into storage, and I was staying at my friend who I bought the stones from, and I just thought, oh, I might just make some jewellery and see how this goes. Maybe I can sell it at the markets. And I started researching more about the different stones and what their healing properties are, and just learning. It was just a learning curve and learning about all of these things, and it was really fascinating. And I started doing more meditation and doing yoga while also going through family court. Family court was harrowing. It was the most harrowing year in 2014 to go through that without a lawyer and self-represent. I managed to go through family court self-representing while also doing healing worlds, making jewellery and selling it at markets, and that was my main thing. But then I think I ended up moving down to the coast. I met a Chinese family who took me in, gave me a room, and I stayed there for about a year. And then I just went to different rooms in the Gold Coast, and I usually stayed for about a year, which was great. I stayed at the coast for about 5 years, and making the jewellery and doing yoga and meditation, and also having a total detox, because I used to be on psychiatric medications, and I had a total detox off of the medications. The last medications that I was taking were antidepressants, and they were dangerously addictive. They can cause kidney damage and liver damage and all sorts of problems. I started to get severe headaches back in 2012 with some of the medications, and I had to get myself off of them. That continued, and I got myself off of antidepressants as well. Now, to this day, I don't take any of those medications, and I'm perfectly fine. I sleep really well, and I don't have too many problems.
So at that stage, were there any problems with any sort of psychosis or things like that? What I'm worried about is people listening to this thinking, I'll just go off my medications and it's going to be right for everyone.
Oh, no, well, I wasn't on medications for psychosis. No, I don't have that kind of problem. I was on medications for bipolar, what they call as bipolar. And anyway, I've had this kind of like epiphany, awakening, understanding, insight, development, and it's really allowed me to develop a lot of my ideas and have good insights and develop the ideas, and I'm turning it into books.
With all of that, are you having ongoing sort of counselling as well, like, you know, having cognitive therapy and stuff as well?
Oh, no. Well, I'm managing without all that. I was going through a time and I was unsure what I was going to do in my career, and I was going to psychologists, and I was having these $140 hour appointments with them, and they were terrible. I felt ripped off. Well, I was going to these appointments. I thought, are you even using any kind of a method when I'm having this therapy session with you? And I went off and read some books about psychology and counselling, and I realised that they weren't doing what they were supposed to be in these counselling sessions. They were just kind of like being a wall, and I was talking about something and they were just not really feeding back very much of anything. So I was sort of like a little bit blind in the dark there, but I researched about counselling and therapies and CBTs and all of those, and developed my own kind of counselling style as well. And to this day, I don't use counsellors or psychologists that much. I went to a psychologist so that I could confirm the diagnoses of autism spectrum and PTSD, which I did, because she had to use these surveys which nobody can access. Like, they're so expensive and only psychologists get access, all the rest of it. So I had to see her to get that. But I don't really use that sort of thing. If I wanted support, best support you can get to me is a life coach or a coach of any kind of description, because coaches give you credit for your insight and ability at this point. They coach you to your capacity and higher, not assuming that you don't have capacity. So to me, coaches are the best because they don't listen.
Interesting. Now, you said to me that in 2016 you had an epiphany about psychology. You broke a personal barrier that had held you back from your true self since the age of 15. What was that epiphany?
Well, this was a connection, a reconnection to who I truly am as a person. Because on medications, you're a different personality. Like, it's a complete personality dampener. So I just was discovering my true personality. And when I was having this epiphany, I started realizing my creativity again and just being able to think. I was having a lot of upwelling of creativity and doing art, writing stories, just having my creativity without being accused that there's something wrong with me for having creativity, that sort of thing. So it was quite cool to me to have this unveiling of who I am and to really understand who I am, because on medications change your personality, as I said. And I think that medications don't always change your personality for the best. So I feel like I was a different person on medications as I truly am. And so the unveiling, taking off the medications, helped me discover who I really am underneath. And so underneath, I'm a different person. That's what I discovered. But the epiphany was all about psychology and how basic it is. I mean, no need to be intimidated or scared. I don't believe Freud. I don't believe in Freud. I'm a really down-to-earth kind of a psychologist, and my idea of psychology is very down-to-earth. I think people need sleep, food, rest. They need to do something useful. I've got a theory called the spheres of life, and there's these 6 spheres of life, which I believe are fundamental and everyone needs to be achieving in these spheres, and they're nothing to do with oral fixations or anything like what Freud is on about. And so that's kind of like the epiphany.
Interesting. But I want to talk about your sort of spiritualism, I guess. I am someone who loves to have my tarot cards read, and I've just come back from Byron Bay and had one done yesterday, actually.
Awesome.
So tell me, you do that too, don't you?
Oh, yes. Well, I was doing that as a child, and I left that for years. Actually, me and my sister, being Pisceans, were right into the esoteric. We just were fascinated, and my sister got right into it. I think she was bordering on being a full-time pagan, and she had a holiday overseas, and she got to work as a nanny in the UK, and she went to see Stonehenge, and she went to stay in a Bordeaux in France or something, helping a family there, and she used to write me letters from her visit over there and everything. But we were both very fascinated with all this stuff. And I've remained Christian in my belief system, and I won't dabble in witchcraft. Although I know it exists and I understand it and everything, I sort of have an idea of what it is and how it works, but I'm not really allowing myself to go in that direction because, no, I like to be in the white lights. So, the angels, and I'll stick with them. So I feel safer with them.
So, Tabitha, you said that you feel like you got a whole lot more, I'm paraphrasing, more clarity once you came off the medications. And what about sort of even going into the realm of that you can see things really clearly, like your extrasensory perception?
Oh, well, how I developed my own. You have to to be in the psychic world, using your psychic abilities, you have to have almost like a full-time, it has to be in your lifestyle. So you have to be doing meditation and opening your chakras and opening your third eye constantly to keep your third eye awakened. I'm getting old now, and I feel like once you get to menopause, things have changed. I think it's a hormonal thing as well. Well, I would sleep like that, and it would give a really deeper relaxation. And because I was going through so much trauma about the child situation in family court and everything, so sleeping in Savasana pose really helped. And doing yoga, and I was doing yoga and lots of meditation. So I was getting my chakras opened, and I was doing meditations with crystals. I had this amazing experience with a yellow calcite ball that I got over in the coast, and it gave me this message.
What was it? Sorry, a yellow
calcite. It's just a type of crystal, And I did a meditation with the yellow calcite, and I got this image from an extraterrestrial being. It kind of like painted this picture on the wall in my room. And so they like giving me this message. I'm going, wow, I was just in awe of how awesome that message was. What an awesome message. Thank you. That was pretty cool. So I got right into all of those things. And I mean, crystals as a therapy, it's amazing that they can help with so many things. I've got some crystals on me now, and I wear them constantly all the time. These are my little aquamarines. Aquamarines help you feel more courageous in your spirit, help you with the communication connected to your throat chakra. And so I wear a lot of I wear the aquamarines as often as I can. And then I've got this moonstone, and that's a hormonal balancer. And it's also a thought balancer. So, if it's hormone balancing, it's thought balancing and clearing.
Now, unfortunately, the clock is ticking down. Do you know anything about the royals?
The royals?
Yeah. Do you have a favourite royal?
Oh, aren't they just so long-standing? I think they're so adorable. I love seeing them. Doesn't matter which one I see on Facebook or wherever. But I love Kate, how much she's gone through lately, and she's still looking stunning all the time, and she's immaculate. And what a hard family to marry into, hey? No, I don't think anyone would envy her. Or the king, even. He's doing marvellously. No, I'm really proud of them.
So we're going to split our love between Kate and Charles. Okay, we can do that.
Okay.
And are you a dancing person? Do you love to dance? It sounds like you might have danced a bit when you were younger.
Oh, yes, I sure do.
You still love dancing?
Better the Devil You Know, Kylie Minogue. I'll be on the dance floor in 2 seconds flat. I love that song. I love all Kylie dance songs. I love Kylie. She was my hero.
Right. Wasn't it You Can't Put Baby in the Corner? Was that Flashdance? Don't Put Baby in the Corner? Is that the same?
No, Flashdance.
No, that's Dirty Dancing. Sorry.
Dirty Dancing.
Sorry. Okay, so the Kylie Minogue song of choice for you, Tabitha, is?
Oh, Better the Devil You Know. Yes, I'll forgive and forget. I think I sang that song because I was giving the karaoke. I had the karaoke thing going on for a while there as a therapy. And I was going to the Portadown Karaoke Club, and I used to go there every Friday, and I was loving it so much. I started like a little show, a karaoke show with my favourite songs and singing, and I was going around to cafes and doing this for a while, and I did sing Better the Devil You Know in this karaoke club over in the coast.
I'm going to have to wrap it up, unfortunately, but I have really enjoyed our chat, and I have really loved the fact that you got in touch with me.
Well, it's just scary. I had no idea you can ask me so many deep questions.
Well, that's me, Mrs. 20 Questions. I love to know the details, but it's been a real joy, and so thank you for joining me on Big Little Small Talk.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thanks for putting up with me.
If anything in today's program has raised concerns for you or someone you know, please seek advice from a qualified health professional. If you need immediate support, please contact Beyond Brew on 1300 22 4636 or visit beyondbrew.org.au.
That's it for this week. Thanks for joining me on Big Little Small Talk. I hope you can make the time to join me next week. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favourite podcast app.
You've been listening to a 102.7 FM Toowoomba original podcast. For more podcasts or to listen to live and local Toowoomba radio, please visit 1027.com.au or listen on iHeartRadio and Community Radio Plus apps.